Well, rust is the subject of the day. In this part, we're going to start dealing with the rust on the van. Now, T4s are an old van now. There's very few of them that are completely rust-free. They've all, telling the test of time with bits of rust here, there, and everywhere. I'll go through what are typical kind of areas that rust on a T4 in just a bit. Now, I've tried to keep on top of mine as best I can over the last 15 years, and in my opinion, rust is about management. You'll never beat it. You've just got to manage it and keep it back. And that's what we're going to do. There are lots of different opinions on how to deal with rust. There's lots of products out there about, rust cures and so on and so forth. And lots of products, the miracle cure and so on and so forth. In my opinion, all rubbish. If you need, the thing you need to do with rust is you need to dig it out as much as you possibly can. You need to get as much of it out of the metal as you can. And that's how I'm going to go about things. Now, people might say to themselves, well, you don't know what he's talking about. He's talking rubbish. You need to do this, you need to do that. That's perfectly fine. It's the way I'm going to do it. It's the way I want to do it. So that's the road we're going to go down. So we're going to dig the rust right out. I am going to use a couple of rust products to then seal the metal and try and hold the rust back for as long as I possibly can. And hopefully hold it back as long as we can. Right, so I'm just having a cup of tea. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get an area prepared. And I'll just show you through how I'm going to deal with that rust. And as I said, I'll go through the kind of common areas for a T4 as we go. Sounds all right? Let me finish my tea and then we'll get stuck in. So I've just hooked the poly mask up out of the way so we can have a look at this side. I'm going to start today with the arch and sill section is what we're going to deal with. Now, T4s suffer with arches. This dog leg area here, as you can see, there's some rust on the face of that. This is a very common area for T4s. We've got a little bit on the bottoms of the wings there as well. We're going to evaluate the wings a bit later on and see if it's worth putting some new ones on it, but we'll get to that when we start getting into the wings. Sills, front of the sills is probably one of the worst sections on a T4. Now, as you can see, there's a patch of rust there. Now, this is in first inspection and just giving that, let me try and do it now, just giving that a bit of a push. That is all quite solid. Now, when we start hitting it with a grinder, is it going to hold? Well, maybe. We'll find out. But it seems to be quite solid and a lot of surface area rust. Now, these sections, both sides, are usually prone. What's also quite prone and coming up a lot recently is this section underneath the side loading door where this rail goes. Now, I've kept this very well wax oiled over the years and I don't think we're going to have any trouble with that area, although it is very common. Now, I know there's a couple of guys out there manufacturing replacement panels for those areas now, and I know you can get a replacement panel to go in there, which is fantastic because they are a real problem along the bottom of there. But we don't have to deal with that one, so happy days. So rear arches again, also an issue. T4's normally around the windscreen as well, but I did this one a couple of years ago. I had the windscreen out and did a load of rust protection about 6 years ago now. So that's held up really, really well. And you can see there's no rust. And believe me when I tell you, it's the same all the way around. So we don't have to worry about the screen too much either. Although I am having the screen out for the repaint. The other issue I've got on this one, so I'm just getting tangled up in the poly mask, is that little section there. Now, I've seen a few go there, not all of them, but there seems to be, again, seems to be quite solid. But it seems to be a little bit of a, I don't know, like a water trap there or something that brings the rust through there. So there's other bits and pieces that we'll get to, but kind of the sill sections are the worst of it. And it's pretty much the same the other side. So we'll get into that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get set up and I'm going to try and clean up some of this rust. Now, what I'm going to do firstly is I'm going to bring a lot of this plastic masking back down and mask up a lot of the van. A couple of my pet hates. One is ignorant parking, but I could do a whole video on ignorant parking. And the other is not filings, shards of metal coming off the grinder and digging into things. So basically, your iron filings that hit the paintwork, hot metal hitting bits of the paintwork that I don't want hot metal on, and I don't want to start rusting, and it sticks into the glass and so on and so forth. So I want to keep all the sparks to an absolute minimum of hitting the rest of the van. So I'm going to pull the sheet back down and mask myself off an area to try and protect the rest of the bodywork and the glass and so on and so forth. Right, ready to start digging at the rust. I'm going to use the initial digging of this rust. I'm going to use a grinder with one of those type of pads on it. I don't know what they call them, like a flappy sanding jobby. I've put a big heavy duty work light so I can really see what I'm doing. So I know exactly what I'm looking at. And of course, I've got a brand new one, look, face shield, because this is all going to go everywhere, going to hit me all in the face if I ain't wearing something like this. So I'm going to have an initial dig at the rust and see how bad it is. So I've cleaned away a lot of the loose. Now that flappy disc took all the loose off, but it hasn't really hard to see on camera. You can kind of see the brown spots and the dark spots are still, might even be easier that way. There we go, take that light off it. You can see that I've taken the loose off, but the black dark spots are still what we want to get out. So I've swapped on my grinder to a traditional proper grinding wheel, okay? And did a little bit there, and you can see that it gets in that much deeper. But this has all got to go. All this black has got to go. It's got to be all shiny. Now this is the point where some people would go, oh, let's slap some rust cure over the top of it. It'll be absolutely fine. We'll seal it in. It won't get any worse. Well, in my opinion, it will. So I want that as clean as I can possibly get it. I need to be proper OCD about it. Now, I mean, I'm putting skirts over the top of this. So at the end of the day, as long as it's rust-free, that's what I'm looking for. If it's rust-free, I want it to stand the test of time because I'm going to cover it up again. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to go with the grinder a bit more, see how we get on. So I've been digging away at this with the grinding wheel now for about 5 or 10 minutes. And we're beginning to make some headway. We've got a lot of the rust out now. And it's really difficult to tell in this kind of light what's what. So I've got a torch here, and as I kind of throw the torch over, you can see that what we want is all the little dark areas out of it. All those little dark areas are rust. Now, from that angle, you can still see a little couple of sections. Yeah, little bits of rust. They all need to come out, right? But when you look with the light, you can see that some of it is just shadowing and overheating of the metal as well. As I'm grinding it, I'm overheating the metal and it will discolor slightly. So you have to kind of work out which is which from that. But I'm still, from that angle, I can still see, those there, that's rust. That's rust. So what I'm going to do now, as I said, I've been using that wheel. Now, if you're doing this kind of stuff, remember not to just work in one direction, yeah? Because when you work in other directions, you can then really dig into the rust a little bit harder. So if you're having trouble, if you're grinding away at it like that and you're not getting there, then try a different angle with the grinder to try and really get in there and dig this rust out. Because as I said, in my opinion, this is your rust cure. It's getting it out. Now, I think I'm going to get lucky on this sill. It seems to be solid so far, although I have holed the end just there. So I think we're going to have to cut that out and put a piece in there, I think. But I think there's going to be other sections on the van where we're going to have to put pieces in. So as I get further into it, we'll know what needs welding and what doesn't. So I'm going to use a power file next and try and dig into these bits that I'm not happy with. Plus, I've got to get underneath here as well. Again, people do forget that you've got to get this rust that's underneath there. And I'm going to struggle to get in really deep with the grinder. So I'm going to use the power file for that. So just quickly, I said about power filing the next couple of bits. This is what I mean by power file. Now, this is a I've got an air one as well, but these things are just as good as anything. Black & Decker thing, as you can see, it's been around the block a little bit. Been a good tool, this. Now, I don't know what these are, 50, 60 quid maybe in B&Q, something like that. You've got a blade on the end of it like that, a blade, a sanding disc. I think I've got an 80 grit or a 60 grit on there right now. I'm going to use this to do the fine bits, and especially the bits I can't get into with the grinder, like there, for example. I'm going to use this to get into those places. So, as I say, handy little tool. I mean, I've had these things for years. They're so useful. So we're going to have a go at some of the other bits and pieces of rust now, just with this. Now, just to show you again quickly that bit that I just showed you, using a power file, that section that I just showed you just here, I spent literally about a minute with the power file, but I was able to dig right in deep into this thing here. Now, if you can't hit it with a grinder, doesn't mean it's going to stop. You need to get in there with something else if you can't get in with a grinder. So that's what I've done with this, and as you can see, that's that section there. That 1 inch square is beautiful. So we've just got an awful lot more inches to do. But I just wanted to show you that before I moved on. So again, now dig into some of this other rust with me power file. So I've been here for a couple of hours cleaning up all the rust along the bottom edge. Luckily, it ain't too bad at all. We've got one little hole there, which we're going to have to put a patch in. But other than that, pretty good. Not bad at all. So, as I said, the cure to rust is dig it out. So I've dug it as much as I can, but I am going to put some stuff on it. I'm going to put this chap on it, Aqua Steel, which we've used before. It's got a good write-up. I'm going to put a coating of that on, and then I'm going to put an epoxy primer over the top. So... to seal it up. So I'm going to paint some of that on and treat the rust. Now, we're not going to go through every bit of rust on the van because it would make for a very boring video, wouldn't it? So we'll just show you a few bits and how we go, and then we'll move on. Right, just before we move on, you can see that I've put some of that Aqua Steel on the areas that I've cleaned up all the way down through. We need to do this over the whole van now and do all the little rust spots. So we're going to end this part of the video now. And then later on in the series, you'll see when we get this all, the little bits welded up and in epoxy primer and so on and so forth. But as I say, that's a good start. We've got to go around the rest of the van now, get serious and get the doors off and so on and so forth and get all these little rust issues dealt with. And... yeah, we'll move on to the next stage.